welcome back, guys. Back in the shop. Wally's back in position to continue to work on him. The Scout over there is back in the garage. That was the first time I actually got to drive the Scout in all-wheel drive and actually use it in all-wheel drive. I have tested it before, but I don't typically drive it in the snow because I don't want salt and more rust and stuff, but it was fun to get it back in the garage using all-wheel drive. But we're back on Wolley. So we'll head back over to the shop. It did take quite a while to get everything back in order in the shop, but things are looking pretty good, getting organized. Still plenty of organizing to do, but looking a lot better. We got the mill and the lathe in here, and if you guys haven't seen the last video, I'll put a link in the description or at the end of the video. Check it out. Still not up and running yet because I don't have three-phase. That'll be a future video. But I did a lot of reorganizing. It actually took quite a while to free up some floor space, but also some bench space so I could get working on Wolley again. I've got some parts, not super exciting parts, but parts that are needed. So I've got water pump gaskets. I've got the thermostat housing gasket. I did get a new thermostat just because I'm already in there. Upper radiator hose, that should be a direct replacement. The bottom radiator hose, I could not find a direct replacement, so I'm gonna go with the accordion style. Once I get the coolant system hopefully not leaking, I'm gonna move to the oil. I'm gonna do an oil filter change, or an oil change, including the oil filter, and drop the oil pan. That's why I have the oil pan gasket there. I'm gonna turn to the transmission, and I'm gonna turn to the differential and just get the old fluid out and put new fluid in. I'm not gonna dive deep into those unless there is no fluid or it looks really crappy. I just wanna be able to get Wolley healthy again to get on the road or to start driving. But I don't have brakes yet, so that's gonna be the next episode, which I've started to dig into a little bit. But yeah, today, this episode, I really wanna try to get these parts installed so that I can feel comfortable running the engine for any significant amount of time. So let's go. Last step to get the coolant system buttoned up is to get the radiator back in and all the hoses and whatnot. I made an audible kind of last minute, and I decided to actually go outside and grab Rusty Bobby's radiator for a couple reasons. One of the reasons that I discovered as the original radiator was lying on its back for quite a bit, for a week or so. It looks like it was kind of leaking just by sitting there with water in it on its back. This bracket came unsoldered, or was unsoldered when I took it out, so I knew about that. So I decided to go with this one. It doesn't look that different, but a couple things that make me more confident in this one. One, it had coolant in it, and it wasn't leaking. Two, the last time it was in, someone actually went out of their way to put anti-seize on the bolts, which means whoever did it knew what they were doing, so that's a big one. Which is a reminder, I should probably put anti-seize on the bolts going forward. And number three is the previous owner said that this was working, and I believe him. So all that being said, I'm gonna keep this original radiator out for now and put the one from Rusty Bobby in and keep my fingers crossed that we don't have any leaks. Well, I am 2 gallons in of water, and it looks like we still got a leak coming from the water pump, not coming from the seals that I just replaced, and it's kind of hard to tell, but maybe I'm gonna have to dig into the water pump a little more and get a seal working there. That's a total bummer. All right, I think we're finally ready to run this thing and try to bring it up to temp. I did grab the water pump from Rusty Bobby. with my youngest Miriam. Brought it in here, got it installed, and again I had a leak, but this leak was actually from the heater inside the cab, which wasn't a big deal. So what I ended up doing is I just ended up short-circuiting the line that's supposed to go to the heater in the car. So I've got the hot output here, looped back in over to go right back into the engine, and I did just kind of seal off the heater there. All right guys, time to check out engine oil, tranny oil, diff oil. Let's change them out. Let's see what we got. Oh, a little sludgy. Well, that's still draining. I'm gonna start cracking the bolts to take the oil pan off and see what sludge is kind of hiding in there and give it a good clean out. All right, I got a total of 4 bolts off and it took me 20 minutes. So just found a better approach. Maybe a pro tip here is apply a little bit of heat. Just enough to soften the hard gunk up into soft gunk. It makes it a whole lot easier. Find the bolt, clean the edges. Taking a look in the oil pan, still some oil in there, which you could imagine would still be the case. It definitely is some nice and sludgy, so I'm gonna take some time and clean this out. Where the oil plug is down there, there's even more sludge. Well, I could have probably spent a little more time on it, but I'm pretty confident this is one of the best, most thorough oil changes this truck has ever seen. So got the new gasket here, as you can see, and let's put this thing back on. I was just scraping up where the oil pan filter is going to go. One of the bolts that was holding the clutch or flywheel bell housing cover was gone and just tied up with some metal. So I took the other bolt off, and actually the head came off, which is kind of a pain. And I started to take the bell housing off and found this. So I'm kind of glad that happened, because now I get to go in and clean this guy out and try to recover those 2 holes so I can bolt this bell housing back in properly. It's definitely a nice home for some little creatures for a while, I'm sure. I went in and was able to make that hole on the right there work. Tapped it out to 1/4-20, and then I had to start from scratch on that one there, drill a new hole and make it 1/4-20. And of course they're Allen heads, which would never have come from the factory, but I don't have the right size here, but You can see the weep hole is there, it's cleaned out, and it is solid, so it's not going anywhere. So back to the oil change. Before filling oil in the engine, I'm gonna stick under the car for a minute and drain the transmission and put some new fluid in there. There's the bottom plug there, the square plug that you can see that I'm gonna open up and drain out, and then that top square plug there is where you put the oil in. It does look like this is wet, which is a good thing. Means there's probably fluid in there, but probably needs to be changed as well. So let's take a look at what it looks like. For transmission fluid, I'm going to use this full synthetic 50 weight. It comes in a 5-gallon bucket, way cheaper, but then you got to figure out how to get it in there. I have a couple of these bottles that have the squirt tops on them. I just made a little fixture out of cardboard so that when I'm dumping that into here, it doesn't get messy. But I'm probably going to have to fill up this, I don't know, 4, maybe 5 times to make sure it's topped off. Yeah. Couple more of those. So same deal with the rear diff. We've got a fill hole here and a drain hole down under here. Oh, that one looks like it's a 3/8 square. Maybe smaller. So I couldn't find a bit that goes in the plug for the drain, but the end of a tap is about the right size, maybe a little undersized. I'm gonna go ahead and make a custom tool. This is a screwdriver that also was a custom tool at some point. I'm just gonna try to trim this down to be a little bit bigger than that. I think I can then get it in there and just take a adjustable wrench and tighten or loosen it. For the diff fluid, I'm going to use gear oil for transmission and differentials, 80 weight 90, same deal. Should be able to fill her up. Got the oil change done. If you were wondering what I was using for oil, I kind of mixed up a little concoction here. I had this Hot Rod and Classic motor oil, which has a lot of zinc, which is good for these older engines. I had 4 quarts left from an oil change on the Scout, and then I used a little less than 2 quarts of the Napa 10W30, just kind of generic oil. I also threw in this engine restorer and lubricant, which again I used on the Scout. That seemed to help a little bit. I got gas ready, I got everything ready, so let's see how this thing fires up and runs. When the engine starts, I'm gonna be monitoring the level of the coolant and then also the coil temperature. If it runs for a little bit, I'm actually gonna try to back it out of the garage for the first time, even though we don't have brakes, just so when it's running, I don't smoke up the garage.
You're turning that way? Whoa! Whoa!
All right.
What? Why did you jump out while it was moving? Sorry.
All right, now I can let it run here for a little bit. All right, guys, that was awesome. Got it out of the garage, ran for about 15 minutes, and then got it back in the garage. And it ran well. Really didn't stutter at all. I did try to rev it up as much as I could to get it heated. Does seem like it got to temperature. I think the thermostat kicked in. No leaks. I see no leaks whatsoever, which is awesome. I am a little low on oil, but I will fill that, and the water is a little bit murky, which is to be expected. So I will add some oil. I'll do a coolant flush. Yeah, I'm gonna call this one a win. So next episode, I'm gonna be working on the brakes so that I don't have to be scared taking this out of the garage anymore. As usual, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode.